Is WWE about to waste one of John Cena's final matches on this farewell tour in 2025? That's the question some people are asking. This week on SmackDown, you had Cody Rhodes finally address everything with the fallout from WrestleMania 41, and that led to, of course, John Cena coming out, Logan Paul coming out. We know the big tag team match is set for next week with John Cena and Logan Paul teaming up to take on Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. That'll happen at Money in the Bank in Los Angeles on June the 7th. And now, as we look ahead for John Cena, as many people have, we're trying to figure out what the matches are going to be for him over the next half, the latter half now, of this final retirement tour. We're into month 6 of this thing. It started in January. We're in June. We know, for John Cena, the retirement tour ends in December. Per the reports, it sounds like his final match will take place in Boston in early December, based on what we know right now. And that means that you've got to get a lot of still very, entertaining and very revenue-producing matches left for John Cena. You've got to get to those now over the next 6 months. And now that we see who he's gone through to get to this point, right? Obviously, the Royal Rumble was one of those matches, the Elimination Chamber, 2 big matches there, the WrestleMania 41 match against Cody Rhodes to win the record-setting 17th World Heavyweight Championship. He had the match against R-Truth. He had the match against Randy Orton. These are ones that tie into the history of John Cena and WWE. These are people who have been connected to him over the years, and we know still out there are potential matches, as we know, the rematch against Cody. CM Punk has to be in that rotation somewhere. There's some other possibilities you could still do with John Cena, depending on whether he's playing the heel or the face. And that's where, you could have matches with guys like potentially a Gunther or Drew McIntyre, people like that, which I think I'd like to see before the end of this retirement tour. Don't know if we'll get there with those two, but I'd like to see it based on where they're at right now. And again, there are many more, more combinations you can work with for Cena, whether it's in singles matches or tag team matches. But because they are such a limited sort of availability now, when we know these dates are dwindling, right? How many weeks ago was it that John Cena was talking about the 26 or 27 remaining dates, whatever the number was at that time when he did it, and how the countdown was on? Well, we've had some of those since then. So that number is getting smaller and smaller. And knowing that he's going to be at these big PLE type events, and knowing that, again, you look at kind of the PLE schedule over the next little bit, Saturday night's main event next month in Atlanta, you've got a lot of these shows that John Cena is going to be on. So now you've got to figure out when are you going to do some of those matches. But again, the opponents are pretty limited. So when I say, is WWE going to waste, potentially, one of the matches on a certain opponent, that's what we mean by it, right? And that's why people are wondering, are they going to do a John Cena match against another opponent that maybe for some people seems a little lackluster? That was kind of the thought with R-Truth. But at least with R-Truth, come on, it's truth, right? You knock that one out of the way. You do it on a Saturday night's main event. It's not the main theme of the show. It's not really the match that had the most stakes involved or anything like that. When you had Jey versus Logan Paul, you had the big tag team match with Rollins and Breakker against Punk and Zayn. The steel cage match, all of that. It was a pretty high stakes show. But now, is WWE going to do one of these big John Cena matches against Logan Paul? Because as you know, when we did have the exchange on SmackDown this week with Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso and everything building to that big tag team match, it was John Cena and Logan Paul putting each other over, right? Cena was really hyping up the idea that Logan Paul is the only other person in WWE that embodies the hustle, loyalty, and respect mantra, and how he is sort of the person who can carry the WWE forward for many years to come, and how much fans would hate that the celebrity, Logan Paul, would do just that. That would accomplish John Cena's goal of ruining wrestling, right? By backing Logan Paul, the celebrity entertainer who has come in and tried to take over WWE and was almost getting there. He almost won the World Heavyweight Championship. Now he's going to be in this big tag team match. But as far as we got into that, the first, several minutes of this segment, and then Logan Paul is kind of talking himself up for several minutes, eventually we get to some tension between these two. They were just paired together for the first time, despite, them two sort of, being retreating, I guess, in Saturday night's main event. They're paired up for the first time here, and you already get some tension because, Jey Uso saying, hey, let's have a fight. John Cena the veteran, is sort of looking at this and saying, all right, we're not going to fall for this. We're not going to play their game. Logan Paul, not a veteran, decides, hey, I'll step up and let's fight right now. And then you get a little bickering between those two. You get that interaction. And so to me, anytime you see that, right, you know that that's done for a reason. They're not just doing it, to sit there and say, all right, we're just going to sit here and bicker at each other as heels. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But they're laying the foundation for something to come. And as I talked about on the SmackDown reaction show this week, I said you're clearly looking at two options here, seemingly the most likely ones for John Cena and Logan Paul to have that match. Now, we know sometimes in this era, in the Triple H era, it can be a bit of a slow burn. Maybe this isn't a match you do until months down the line when John Cena has turned back to the good side, when something has brought him back, which to me, I think that rematch against Cody, there has to be something in there that plays a big role in John Cena getting ready to make that turn. I don't know if he completely does it at SummerSlam, which would seem like the likely destination for John Cena and Cody Rhodes, the rematch. Some have suggested maybe you do John Cena and Cody Rhodes at Night of Champions coming up here in several weeks after, Money in the Bank. You do that in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, they do some pretty big matches over there. So could they do that? I suppose it's possible, but you would think you would want the rematch at SummerSlam. It's a 2-night event. You've got to have a headliner for both nights, and it would seem pretty fitting that the rematch would headline one of those. But again, it's WWE in the TKO era, which does kind of also tie into the Logan Paul thing. Like it or not, and trust me, there have been many situations that I've not loved, and I know many fans out there haven't either, with the way that some of this stuff has played out in this era, whether we're talking about ticket prices, whether we're talking about the celebrity stuff. We mentioned other wrestlers and other promotions commenting about how a future WrestleMania could simply be headlined by celebrities. Kenny Omega said that not long ago. And so when you look at all these things that have been said, Logan Paul versus John Cena is the ultimate TKO type match, right? And so to me, it kind of shows you like this is something that I don't think they would hesitate at all to do, because we know what it would look like from a presentation standpoint. You would have plenty of probably social media records broken doing John Cena versus Logan Paul. You would get all kinds of sort of mainstream attention by having these two go at each other in a match. You'd get those kind of things you want that hasn't just, been in the TKO era. WWE's always wanted that, right? We've mentioned that before in other videos. But in this instance, knowing that you do have those limited matches left for John Cena, and you're looking at that roster of potential opponents, I don't know that Logan Paul is one that a lot of people probably want to have on their list in terms of the single matches. Like I said, R-Truth probably wasn't either, but R-Truth is a bit endearing, right? If you're a longtime wrestling fan, it's R-Truth. I mean, come on, right? You knew it wasn't going to be a 30-minute classic or anything like that. You're using it for the story purpose, which they got out of it by having Cena hesitate there for a second and really consider, should he do this against R-Truth? So you're already getting kind of those wheels turning on John Cena, at least has, for a certain point, considered, am I going too far with this? And we know that's eventually going to play out with everything. But for now, to me, the biggest thing is that we seemingly are headed towards John Cena versus Logan Paul. And again, is that going to be like a wasted match for some people? Because I don't think you're looking at the idea that Logan Paul is going to win the WWE Championship from John Cena. But really, it could just be a matter of where they're going to do this and how that plays into how they do the match. And that's why, to me, I mentioned the possibility of the next two shows coming up after Money in the Bank, which is Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia at the end of June. And then you've got Saturday night's main event during that Atlanta weekend, which, by the way, is also AEW All-In weekend. So we know WWE has already loaded up that weekend in Atlanta by adding NXT Great American Bash, also adding the Evolution PLE for the women's show. And so they're going all in on that one. So could you do John Cena versus Logan Paul? I'm going to say maybe not, and the reason why is because Goldberg's retirement match seemingly has been rumored for that show. So you don't necessarily need Cena versus Paul, but if you want to load everything up that weekend, doing both is certainly a possibility to get you maybe the biggest number in terms of your NBC primetime audience. That could be a possibility. But also, I've also, kind of mentioned in the SmackDown review, you could see logically why they may actually think about doing the match in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if they're going to or not. A lot of this is going to depend on how the tag team match plays out, right? How does it actually play out between Cena and Paul? Do you have one turn on the other? seems unlikely in terms of doing it that hard of a stance, because then you're just turning one or the other, and, well, it just doesn't, I don't know if you're going to do it that quickly, right? But if you kind of play up the idea that these two are saying all the right things about each other, but they just simply can't get along coming out of this tag team match, well, then if you do that, kind of expecting that this is John Cena the heel, but you're also kind of knowing that he's probably going to get cheered a bit in Saudi Arabia. It may be the last time, right? He does a show over there based on their current schedule. And so, from that perspective, you would play it up that way. Logan Paul is going to get booed. John Cena could get cheered. You could do kind of that sort of match and have it play out there as just one of these where it's, hey, Logan Paul, as much as John Cena is the heel, right? Logan Paul is just a bigger heel. And he's the guy that, is going to come out and say he's bigger than John Cena and all this other stuff. The tricky part could be, how do you get from that to then getting back to sort of the same setup with Cody Rhodes and John Cena, and having Cena as the 100% heel in that equation, which I don't know is going to happen from a 100% standpoint. But really, it all comes down to, is Logan Paul kind of the worthy contender to face John Cena in one of these matches? And look, they may not do the match at all, but we always know when they put these little bitty tiny teases in there and you have this tension, some of this tension with other members of the WWE roster have been going on for a long time. But this is one where if you do it, you've got to get to it pretty quick, knowing that, you still got a lot to get to with Cena the rest of the year. You would think the stuff with Punk, as of right now, seems like the most logical final opponent, final feud for John Cena. We'll see if that's how it plays out. But it does seem like they're going to get to this Logan Paul match one-on-one, and that's a big one-on-one match that you're doing with John Cena at this point. And what will the reaction be from fans? And does it feel like it's sort of a wasted match in this whole run? I think with the way they're playing this up, Logan Paul is such a hated sort of villain that this could be another kind of, development in terms of getting John Cena back to the good side, right? And you use Logan Paul as sort of the catalyst for that in one of many little tiny things that are going to build up to eventually get John Cena back where he needs to be. But we'll see if that's how it plays out here. For now, putting each other over on SmackDown, despite having a little bit of tension coming out of it, how does it play out? Does that tension escalate at Money in the Bank? We'll talk about it in our predictions this week here on the channel. So hit your subscribe button so you don't miss those predictions. I don't know what you guys think. What do you think about this potential John Cena versus Logan Paul match? Do you think this is a waste of one of Cena's final matches? Or do you think this is a good pairing potentially when they do this singles match at some point? How do you see them interacting in the tag team match against Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Always appreciate you guys watching, and do let me know your thoughts and predictions on whether we're going to get John Cena versus Logan Paul.